Kate Falcho, welcome to Irish Granny Helen. We're continuing our Saturday book. We're on video number 4 of Jesus and the Lost Goddess. We're getting to the goddess. We're very close. So when last we spoke on video 3, we ended with Carl Jung's espousing of Gnosticism, which he called psychology. So moving on, the literalists' legacy. Christian literalists became a spiritual and cultural disaster. By that, the book means so much was lost and destroyed because of their insistence on only having their literalist opinion. Excuse me. Typifying them throughout the ages, one Guatemalan missionary group said this: no, actually, I'm jumping back to Hitler, another fun group. Christian civilization proved hollow to a terrifying degree. It is all veneer, but the inner man has remained untouched and therefore unchanged. Everything is to be found outside, in image and in word, in church and Bible, but never inside, because they were exiling the inner mysteries. Then we come to this group of missionaries in Guatemala who collaborate with a very brutal secret police and said, the army does not massacre Indians. This is a quote. It massacres demons, and the Indians are possessed by demons. Nice. So Christian literalism lost its soul without Gnosticism, and it became the bastion of hypocrites. Ecclesiastical autocrats. They maintained power with violence, and very often there was no distinction between priests and politicians. They justified laying waste to continents and enslaving millions. Historically, they resisted all steps to compassion and humanity. Yesterday, I spoke with Deborah of the Cosmic Fold and a young man from the American Humanists Association, and we talked about something I had never heard of. The technocrats are very fond of talking about toxic empathy. Now there's an oxymoron. Today, now once again, because I jumped around a little bit, we're talking about these missionaries in Guatemala, 8,000 of them, who oppressed the indigenous, and that was their comment. There are demons in them. In Europe, the number of Christians has plummeted. Fundamentalism is literalism. It's an extension of the early intolerant Roman Christianity. The authors are told that they will be, and have been told by fundamentalists, that they will be in eternal torture that Camp Jesus has for blasphemers. Like Tertullian, the thirst for knowledge is a vice, he said. Their virtue lies with blind faith. The book points out that in the Old Testament, they revere violence. God kills everybody with a flood, with plagues, kills the firstborn, slaughters whole tribes, kills 3,000 for worshiping a rival god. God seems to be constantly dyspeptic, upset, and lashing out. The first book of Samuel says that Jehovah takes vengeance on okay, there's a group of people. I don't have the whole word written out. I don't know what I was thinking. But Jehovah, God, took vengeance on them. This is in the Old Testament, by giving all the men hemorrhoids. They condone human sacrifice. They stone a man for gathering firewood on the Sabbath. Marcion, the Gnostic, called Jehovah the exterminator. So the book continues to point out all the ridiculous Old Testament stuff, and I just sort of glossed over it. Then we want to talk about fantasists. They believe the Gospels were fallible human works, but they do a cherry-picked form of Jesus. They pick and choose what they like about the stories. They have all sorts of lunatic ideas. For example, Jesus is a spaceman who wants us all to self-eliminate from and join the mothership. Usually, the preferred version of Jesus is like the creator of that version. Docariot would be a hard to see. Docetism or Docetism is Jesus is now the creator, the divine, who took on a human form but isn't really human. So this is what they want you to believe. Gnostics have many versions of Gnosticism, but none of them include an historical figure. All of the people in Gnostic stories are mythological. Jesus shows himself as people are able to see him according to the level of spiritual awareness each individual possesses. So what one person sees may not be anything like what the other person sees. And they say this: God is greater than our thoughts, as we have learned from these aged widows who have seen the Lord in a variety of forms. According to Theodotus, Paul recognized that each one knows the Lord in his own way, and not all know him alike. Paul himself famously experienced Jesus as a vision of light. In the Apocryphon of John, John also experiences Jesus as light, but in this case containing a metamorphosing image. And this is a quote from this story. Now, this is an original Gnostic story. I saw in the light a youth who stood by me, and while I looked at him, he became like an old man. And then he changed his appearance again and became like a servant. There were not many before me, but an image with many forms in the light. And the image appeared through each, and it took 3 forms. And he said to me, John, why do you doubt? Why are you afraid? You're not unfamiliar with this image, are you? Don't be nervous. I am the one who is with you always. This is what the dead Jesus said when he appeared to the doubting Thomas. He didn't just say, oh, hi, I recognize you. I thought you were dead. No, it wasn't like that at all. He saw a light, and then the light morphed in different images. And Jesus said, I'm all of it. Okay. Jesus is a symbolic visionary figure, not human, mutable, means changes. The archetype of the self, who appears according to one's level of understanding. A mythical figure adapted to the viewer. The hero of a transformative, allegorical myth. Jesus, shown as a guy with long hair and a beard, didn't start until about the 8th century in East. The picture of Jesus is whatever is the product of our own imagination. It's not important if there was or was not a real historical figure. That's the other thing. It's the philosophical knowledge behind it. It's a mythical archetype to reach Christ consciousness, anointed consciousness, awareness of wisdom. And you have to be spiritually ready to hear this in a positive light. If it really gives you a problem and it causes you to feel verklempt, then it's just not time. But it's all about Christ within. People really want a savior to rescue them, and this is an archetype, the God-man, that was created for spiritual beginners who didn't yet know that the mythical figure really is yourself, your true identity. The message is not look out, because you're clinging to an illusion. The message is relax. You're not drowning. You can let go because life is actually completely safe. Just experience gnosis and all your ignorance will be dispelled. Just know who you really are and you will have absolutely no fear ever again. Discover the Christ within yourself and you will always be one with God. You know, easier said than done. I think we would all agree with that because we are fallible human entities, right? It's not who we are, but it's what we're trapped as. Chapter 4, know yourself. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and whoever knows himself shall find it. Know yourself. This is from the Jesus figure. This is also written over the sanctuary at Delphi, the oracle, or was the oracle of Delphi. It's the fundamental challenge of most Gnostic belief systems. Know yourself. Christianity, as understood today, has very little to do with its origins and its Gnostic roots that teach us who we really are and what life is all about, our purpose. Understanding Gnosticism reveals the meaning behind the myths of Jesus and the goddess. So let's look at Gnosticism a little more closely. So they believe that humans have 3 aspects. I'm afraid I might have thrown some of this terminology around because, as I've said, I'm farther along in the book and I don't remember what ideas are introduced where necessarily. So I apologize if I made it more confusing. And I want to say that we're going to use a word here, psyche, referring to it as psychic. We're not talking about somebody who can predict the future or read energy. We're not talking about that. This is a different use of the word. So the humans, according to Gnosticism, have 3 aspects: the body, the soul, and the spirit. The body is the outside of the circle, the circumference, the I hope I say this right, the thesis. The soul is the psyche. That's that kind of outer mystery, beginning initiate, sort of a superficial desire to be a good person, but not really understanding the deeper spiritual concepts. And then you have the spirit, or the pneuma. Pneuma comes from the same word as breath. It's the breath of life. And they describe the whole thing in a circle, and I think I referred to that, and that may have been a little premature, but here we go. Now I'm going to show you the picture. So you're going to see a circle, and the circumference is the line that defines the circle, and that is incarnation. That's being in a body, and it's everybody who is ever in a body, and each connects to the center by a radius, a straight line. And they each come from a different place, go to the center. So if you imagine the center sending out the radius to incarnation, and eventually that returns to the center. So going out that way to the circumference is being born. Coming back this way is the path of spiritual enlightenment. And when you reach the center, you understand consciousness, gnosis, wisdom. So this is how they describe it. This is the physical aspect, the incarnation. This radius, this line here, is the traveling, the path of the internal you. I have to be careful about using the word soul and spirit, but this is about learning to be a good person and then learning even deeper mysteries. And when you finally get to the point where you recognize that you are not your body, you are simply part of the source, the God source. That's awareness, that's enlightenment, that's consciousness. That's the goal. That's gnosis. So I think I talked about Dante's Inferno, and he talks about the circles of hell. Well, a circle is incarnation. So there are various kinds of incarnations. The circumference is the physical body. The thesis, that's our physical self. The radius is the soul, the psyche. It's the word from which we derive the word psychology. It's our inner self. It's a deeper level of ourselves than our body, but it's not as deep into ourselves as we can go. And then the center is the pneuma, the spirit. That's our essential self. That's that divine spark that is consciousness. Also called nous, N-O-U-S. I want, this is interesting because nous, N-O-U-S, is a pronoun in French. And I wonder if it's related to this philosophical concept, because nous in French means we, as in all of us, as in oneness. That's very interesting. Anyway, nous is a knowing principle, the sense of being. It is who we are. It is consciousness. These can be better understood by looking at our three states. So those are the three, how do they describe the three aspects of human existence? But now we have three states. We can be waking, which is when consciousness experiences the body and the psyche, the soul. So when you're waking, you kind of, you're you, and if you're lucky, you have a soul. Dreaming is consciousness experiencing the soul abandoning the body. So it's the next step along the way. Abandoning, it's not in a bad way. It just means, you're making the journey. So waking, dreaming, and then the deep sleep is the third state. And we withdraw into our spirit, our pneuma. This is pure consciousness. And we do experience this as in our unconscious state. But another way to look at it is we are bodies that are either awake, dreaming, or in a deep sleep. This really is just the starting point, that we're permanently who we are. The body and the psyche, they come and go, but we're not our physical body. They, you are born, you die, you're born again, you die. They come and go, but we're not the physical body. And we are consciousness that sometimes is aware of its body. We're not a physical body that sometimes is aware of its consciousness. Science is materialistic. In science, we're a complex physical organism with an inner life that we don't understand. That's science. Matter is the cause of our conscious experience. So if you want to look at it in a different way, your awareness of reality, it comes from your brain. That's what science would say. If the body came into being because of consciousness, that is a wonder. But if consciousness came into being because of the body, this is a wonder of wonders. And that's, Jesus said that. So science starts with the body and ends with consciousness. It starts, with the physical. Gnosticism starts with consciousness and ends with the body. The other way. Science says we are as we appear to others, the body. Gnosticism says we are ourselves, which is consciousness or essence. Not what we look like on the outside, but who we really are inside. The ancients said that these ideas are actually complementary. Our essential identity is a spirit and consciousness, and as an experiencer. The flow of what the consciousness experiences is the soul. Therefore, the fundamental condition of consciousness is consciousness and being aware of the experience, the spirit being aware of the soul. So your body is alive, container for your soul. Your soul is doing the experiencing, and your spirit is connecting it to pure consciousness. It's like a relay system. So it would appear that the soul is inside the body, as in the eyes or windows of the soul. The Gnostics regard the soul as an ongoing event witnessed by consciousness. The soul is that experiencing, the totality of our experience, like all the karma rolled into one. This is the inside out, the idea that the soul is inside. So Plotinus says the psyche is not in the body, rather the body is in the psyche. The senses are experiences that let us know the objective world, but we don't know how others experience their senses because they're subjective events in the psyche, and we have no direct access to the psyche of others. And that's an ongoing question: is, does red appear the same to me and mean the same to me as it appears to you? Is your red the same as my red? Or do we both consistently see the same thing we call red as always being red, but it's completely different than what other people call red? Each of us has our own sensory experience of it. I don't think they know. I would think, at least as far as vibration goes, they would be able to show that, because music and color and vision, it's all vibratory. So this is just me guessing, speculating. You would think that they would be able to show at this number of vibrations per minute, that's your red and it's also his red. Maybe. So it's not that we're a physical organism with an inner life. It's that we're an inner consciousness experiencing the body with experiencing the world with a physical body. The body is what we appear to be, but consciousness is what we really are. And in the perennial Gnostic promise attributed to Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas, he said to them, I will reveal to you what no eye can see, what no ear can hear, what no hand can touch, what cannot be conceived by the human mind. He said all kinds of strange things that are difficult to understand outside of the context of Gnosticism. As soon as you understand the basic tenets or concepts of Gnosticism, then a lot of the stuff that he said that seemed so obtuse, well, it makes sense. The great revelation of Gnosticism is that our essential identity is consciousness, not our external appearance. The Christian Gnostic Clement of Alexandria writes this: the greatest of all lessons is to know yourself, for when a man knows himself, he knows God. I have to assume that is also true for women. When we discover our deepest identity, we find we are God. God is not an old guy. He's not a cosmic boss. He's not the omnipotent patriarch. He's not a he. We tend to anthropomorphize, give God human form in our imagination, and that's inaccurate. God is an omnipresent consciousness within which everything exists. And this is Hermeticism. We've done the Kybalion. If you want to, you should check back in the books that I've done. We did the Kybalion, the Hermetic principles. Very in depth, really interesting. But God is an idea, is what they're saying. It's experienced through all beings. We are not separate. In the inner depths, there's one consciousness that we all share, unchanging and the same. It's our shared essential identity. We're all like many radii. We each a radius of a circle, with God as the center point, and the circumference is many bodies. We share the central essence. We are all the one consciousness of God. Each human is a different face of God. Some of them are God on a good day. Some of them not so much. Consciousness, the God center, without the radii, is unconscious in dazzling darkness. So we are the radii. We are what make up the circumference, and our journey is the radii. And without us, there's just nothing. Light with nothing to reflect it is darkness. It's consciousness with nothing, to witnesses of experience, without being able to witness experience. It's unconsciousness. So in order for consciousness to be aware of itself, it needs this light reflecting back like a mirror. The one consciousness of God is a dazzling darkness, and it appears a light of consciousness when it has something to illuminate. I guess it's like that koan of the Buddhists, I believe it is. What's the sound of one hand clapping? Or if a tree falls in the wood and nobody's there, does it make a sound? So this illuminates the infinite psyches, the bodies, in sequences of experience. So this is getting a lot. I think you would have to probably read this about 6 million times to really, I mean, I would have to read it 6 million times to really get it clear in my head. I have a feeling for it, but it's sometimes slipping out of my grasp. I could put it that way. All beings may be thought of as centers uniting at one central center. The centers appear as numerous as the lines starting from them, and yet all centers constitute a unity. Thus, we may liken conscious beings in their diversity to many centers coinciding with one center. They are all one because they share the same center, but appear to be many because of the many radial lines which lead from the center. We are the universal being that the Gnostics call God. Our shared identity is an absolute mystery. So there are some ideas here that really nobody has an explanation for, or at least we're not given an explanation because it's beyond us. Gnostics use the center point because a point has no dimension or characteristics. So that's a good place to start with something that's an ineffable mystery. They call it the one, they call it love. An encounter with the one is experienced as an ecstatic revelation of all-consuming unity and all-embracing compassion. It's really beyond the description of our words. We're on the circumference. We see it as our outer being relative to our experience, which is our consciousness, and the good towards which we all aspire is moving towards the center. Perfect bliss, unconditional love, incomparable beauty, simple truth. Consciousness is God, is oneness, is goodness, is love, is beauty, is a mystery. And it depends on the discipline that you're talking about. You could be talking about psychology or aesthetics or ethics or theology or emotion, and you would choose one of these words: consciousness, God, oneness, goodness, love, beauty, mystery, all talking about the same thing. And I think this reminds me of the near-death experiencers that we've spoken with over the past few years. Their experience when they have medically died is one of perfect love, feeling a sense of unity with something, being a part of something great. They all talk about it in these terms. It's very interesting. The radii confront each other as separate beings on the circumference in a shared dream we call the world as bodies. But before we are ever bodies, we are consciousness and psyche, which eventually manifest in densities as bodies. The experience we call birth is the coming into being of the lower phase of the psyche, which we call the physical body. This is written by Plotinus, pagan Gnostic philosopher, a long time ago. Our apparent identification with our image, it's who we appear to be. This is what we call the ego, but it's a counterfeit consciousness. It's not the real us. It's who we appear. It's what we think of ourselves. It's the idea of who we are. I am who I visualize myself to be, who I think I am to be. And it's not just physical appearance, but it's characteristics and temperament and strengths and gifts and flaws and all those things put together is ego. Mistakenly, we identify ourselves with this idea and not with the consciousness from which it comes. We mistake image for essence. This is the human predicament. We are definitely in a predicament. We're all God, but we think we're flawed humans because we identify with body and not with the essence, which is our essential nature. We live to seek what is good for our body without regard to the consequences to others and the entirety. I mean, if we all acted from a concern for the whole, meaning everybody else, the common good, if that were our driving impulse, it'd be a lot better. Gnostics, their path of self-discovery is the knowledge that the idea of self, ego, is not really your true self, and to become aware of your essential nature as consciousness is our goal. Imagine bringing identification from the circumference to the center. It's a journey of many lifetimes, and each incarnation leaves you, hopefully, depending on the choices you make, wiser, and it's gained from experience. Life after life progresses in a journey back to the center. Gnostic levels of self-awareness, your state of being, there's 3 of them. There's 3 of everything. Materialists, they identify with the body. That's easy. The soulists, they're identifying with the psyche, the radius. And then the spiritists, they're identifying with the pneumatic, the pneuma, the center. There are 2 stages of initiation through these states of being. The psychic soul initiation, the pneumatic initiation. So you think of it as you're incarnate. Now you're going to make this journey to the center. You're going to try to evolve spiritually. Try to learn your true essence. So you start out on the path. So this is the soul initiation, the psyche. And you learn the outer mysteries. In other words, you learn how to be a good person. This is what you want to aim to do. This is what you don't want to do. This is how you want to treat people. And it's based on compassion, love, kindness. It's not thou shalt nots. None of that. Thou shalt not wear linen and wool. No, it's none of that nonsense. It's about your free will choices of how you treat other people and nature, the world around you. So you get to the point where you come to the understanding, oh, I'm not my body. That's just an idea. That's not real. It's illusion. Because the real me is infinite and is part of consciousness, wisdom. It's part of the creator. So you're still heading towards the center, but now you have this new knowledge, this new understanding. So now you're ready for the inner mysteries where they tell you, and this is actually a process of initiation that Gnostics would actually go through. They do classes and they'd be taught this stuff, and they'd realize, okay, I'm not my body. There's more to it. My real essence is something far greater than that. And this is just an opportunity for learning. And the goal is to evolve into a better state and to achieve awareness, consciousness. So you start out doing that by being a good person. And that's a very trite way to put it, but in a nutshell, recognize you're not your body. Okay, now you're ready for the inner mysteries, which are, well, we're going to talk about that. You learn the secret esoteric mysteries. Literalist Christians, that whole belief system is a product of the first stage without ever being initiated into the second stage. You never get beyond the fact that you're following rules, but you never understand that you're not your body. It's not about the death of the physical body and going to heaven and all that stuff. Why number 2, the learning the secret inner mysteries, the esoteric stuff is so removed from today's Christianity, is because it was kept a secret, because so many were just not ready for it, and they would hear part of it and they would dismiss it as ridiculous. They would lash out. They'd call it nonsense. And they said, think of it as like giving very, very young children sophisticated information that's too mature for them. That doesn't go well. There's no sense. They use it in the wrong way, or they don't internalize it and understand it, and it can be damaging. So Christian master Ptolemy explains these things are not openly spoken of, for not all people are ready for gnosis. The psychics, now we're not talking about people with ESP, we're talking about the people on the first stage of this spiritual journey who are realizing, getting to the point where they realize they're not their body, they're learning how to evolve spiritually. Psychics don't grasp things which concern the consciousness of God. They seem like all those things about the consciousness of God seem like foolishness to them, because they can only be discerned pneumatically. Pneumatics, however, understand them. Psychic initiates can also easily misinterpret pneumatic teachings. The danger with telling those who are still completely enmeshed in identification with the ego is that we tell them that they're really God, and this will lead to inflation rather than transcendence, rather than saying, oh, I'm not what people see and how I feel about myself. I'm really something far greater. Some people will go, well, aren't I great? And start, narcissistically imposing that on other people. That's not where you want to go. They're not ready to understand, set aside ego, and realize it's a spiritual transcendence. I'm greater than the physical part of me, not greater, better than other people, greater in a spiritual sense. And that's a subtle distinction that we have to really work at to fully understand. The ego will start to believe it's the Lord of the universe. The history of religion is full of such egomania passed off as spirituality. Okay, the Gnostics are made by a distinction between the soul, the essence, and the spirit, the experiencer. So the spirit is this spark of God that comes into a physical life, and it's like watching it all unfold, I guess. Awakening starts with the original word, metanoia. And okay, so that means a change of heart. And the New Testament defines it very differently. The New Testament calls metanoia as the original text. The New Testament calls it repentance, but that's not what it is. It's not asking for forgiveness. It's not apologizing to a God. It's a change of heart. It's realizing, oh, it's not all about the physical. That's metanoia. It's a dissatisfaction with how you are, with this physical life that we lead, and how meaningless and petty it can be. And it's a sincere desire to be something else, better, different. And it's a turning point. It's always about turning away from the ego. It means you're ready to begin the process of soul initiation. And at that point, what would happen, and keep in mind now, we're talking on two levels here. We're talking about the theory, but this theory is actually translated into ritual. So the initiate in a Gnostic cult would be taught these ideas and then go through rituals to sort of enact them symbolically. And eventually these initiation rituals are told in the stories, the allegories. All of that was taken and misunderstood. And we're going to talk more about it. But you get to the point where you accept that you have a change of heart. You realize the body is not the all. You are at a point of purification. The initiation ritual, like the real actual physical thing that they did, was baptism. What it was any kind of washing with water. And it was merely a symbol of being clean, a symbol of leaving the physical, the dirt, the earth, leaving that behind. Start being taught ethics. That's the next step in the initiation. How to be good, how to be selfless, how to wash away your selfish ego. That's what it's all about. You examine your faults and your failures. We would call it working on ourselves. And it's about personal growth. And you will transcend this as the next step. You'll get beyond the thinking of the self and the ego. But at least now you're working on yourself. And you have to get to know yourself. It's a call to personal knowledge to be a better person. Then you get to that point where you're ready in the initiation to learn the inner mysteries. It's the next step. You know who you really are. You're not a physical person. You're a spirit, a consciousness. So how do you achieve that? The pagan Gnostics talk about purification. That's ethical teaching. They also talk about transmission, and that's receiving the esoteric philosophy and really internalizing the understanding. For the ancients, philosophy is not ideas. Philosophy is not sitting around talking about big thoughts that are hard to understand, and you have to read the paragraph 4 times because, that's what it feels like to me a lot. Philosophy was actually a spiritual practice. If you had to look back and talk about Plato, you would be talking almost more about a spiritual teacher than you would be talking about a philosopher and a playwright. This guy was thinking deep thoughts. It's a rigorous examination of who we are and what life is, our purpose. It's a fundamental change in our perception of reality. Philosophy purges the psyche and prepares it for gnosis. This is coming, it's a quote, a quote from Clement of Alexandria, one of the early Gnostics. We have to learn to disengage from our soul, which is all that experience and interaction with the world. And that sounds awful because our definition of the word soul is slightly different. But we have to learn to disengage from that whole egoic thing and return to the center, the consciousness. And how do we do that? Well, that's what they taught in the inner mysteries. We do it through contemplation, meditation, prayer. We do it by getting back to being the conscious witness, to sit in silence and look at who you really are within. Become aware that we are consciousness. Be aware of the mystery expressing itself as a sequence of experiences. Our thoughts and actions arise in our experience, and we sit back and watch and enjoy the show. The fear of death motivates spiritual exploration in a quest for survival. So they talk a little bit about the fact that people at some point usually come to a come to Jesus moment, and they realize, I'm going to die. And for some people, that's not something that they've thought about quite a bit. For other people, they've thought about it their whole lives, and they're a little bit more prepared for it. But the getting over of that hurdle of acceptance of the fact that your body is going to die, but you will still be alive, that's really the distinction between the inner and outer mysteries, really. That acceptance of, my body's finite, but I'm infinite. So this is what the state of contemplation allows you to discover. We realize we are consciousness. We can't die because we weren't born and because we're not our body. We incarnated. The body is just chugging along. The original Christian vocabulary used a word that translated as salvation, but they meant it as the realization of the permanence of our essential nature. So it was kind of a mistranslation that became, oh, a savior, and that's not the intended meaning. When we discover that we are the permanent presence of consciousness, not the temporary, ever-changing psyche body, we know that we are truly safe. That's salvation, preservation. To be saved is to be made permanent. That's a good way of understanding the subtle difference. The path to self-knowledge is the journey to God. Okay, I can never say this guy's name. This is the Hermetic master, the Hermes Trismegistus. He was an Egyptian sage. He is studied by the original Christians, the Gnostics, and he had this to say. Pure philosophy is spiritual striving through constant contemplation to attain gnosis of God. Concise, fairly easy to understand on the surface. When we think of ourselves as a person, we think of God as the big person. And as we learn that our essential identity is not the person, we know that we are indistinguishable from the mystery of God. Materialists, they don't think about God, or if they do, they dismiss it. Or they have a religion they believe is the ultimate external authority. They obey the rules. Psychics, beginners on the outer mystery journey, the magical mystery tour, they see God as a wise, nurturing parent who helps us with our earthly woes. Many pagan gods were a trinity. This is really interesting. They had all these pagan gods and the Trinity in later Christianity. And the point that this is making, I tried to put this into a little concise kind of a flow chart, and I screwed it up, and it is hard to understand, but I remember what it was saying, that all these different gods, the aspects of the Trinity, all that stuff, these are aspects of the divine. There are persona, they're masks. Each one is a part of the divine. Eventually, we learn that God is not a person. God is one, the good, whatever you want to call it. We transcend the duality. We're no longer God and us. We are God. That doesn't mean that you're all powerful and can go out and do stuff. That's not the point. The goal of gnosis is to become God. So Hermes Trismegistus writes, the goal of gnosis is to become God. In the Gospel of John, Jesus proclaims that his mission is to make his disciples one with God as he is one with God, so that all is perfectly one. Sounds pretty Gnostic to me. This is a process of learning. We're not a body. We're not a personal psyche. We're not an ego, but we're headed, hopefully, into gnosis. We are actually the absolute mystery. Realize the illusion of existence. This is not real. And realize the oneness of all. That's called transcendence, and it's a point where we understand that our true nature, our essential identity, is the good. We won't need to become good. Good will be the natural expression of our being. We will be selfless. We'll know all are one. It's unconditional acceptance. And we see life as a miracle. All is one. It's infinite potential expressed in a variety of lives. We exist on many different levels. We're the mystery expressing itself as consciousness, witnessing psyche, within which we appear to be a person living a life in the world. That's a mouthful. I'm going to read that again because that's a lot. We are the mystery expressing itself as consciousness, witnessing psyche, the soul, within which we appear to be a person living a life in the world, the experiencer. The way, when Jesus said, I am the way is to expand our awareness back to the source. Gnosis is knowing we exist simultaneously in waking, in dream, and in a deep sleep. And we're trying to maintain an awareness of the center. It's not about withdrawing from the world. It's about expanding our awareness by being all we can be. So we don't look and say, oh, we're not our body, so goodbye, cruel world. No, it's not about that. It's about expanding awareness and being the best person that you can be in this journey that we're all on. And as we progress towards the center, mundane life becomes strangely mythic, and you begin to see things. And I think a lot of you would agree that this happens often to me, and I know it does to you because I hear from people all the time. Reality becomes kind of dreamlike, and we see characters in a drama, and we exist outside time. How many times have we all said recently, I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe. I'm watching what's going on in the world, and I'm in disbelief. Or, look at all the synchronicities. Look at how these things are all connected. Surprise, surprise. A lot of people don't think in those terms. We eventually understand that deep sleep, the ground of all experience, is actually oneness. It's the consciousness of consciousness. Original Christianity encoded all of these big ideas in their mythology. And the most important one of all of those myths was the myth of Christ, because it encapsulated the entire Gnostic journey. It represents one consciousness of God at the center of the self. It talks about our shared identity radiating like rays from the center. For Paul, the Christ within is our common essence. Now, that doesn't mean we're all carting around like an evil twin or something, Jesus. No, that's not what it means at all. The light is our inner essence. We're the members of the body of Christ, for in reality, there is one consciousness and one body. In a prayer of the Apostle Paul, Paul prays to Jesus, it is you who are my consciousness. Dionysius urges us, this is a pagan guy, urges us to experience a communion with Jesus, who is transcendent consciousness. Now, remember that a lot of these Gnostics, even though they come from different traditions, share these beliefs and understand what each other is saying, which is so interesting. It's so ecumenical of them. The one consciousness in all of us, the Logos, the true light, which illuminates everyone, is explained as that in you, which sees and hears, is the Logos of the Lord. It is the consciousness of God the Father. And they're using terms like Lord and Father, which is very anthropomorphic. But this is where our human brains are just really struggle with these concepts. Metaphorically speaking, allegorically speaking, the Son, Jesus, is the consciousness of the Father. This is the mystery. It's not fully explained. feels confusing, it's because it should be. We can't really explain it. Jesus is the potential for consciousness, the symbol of shared identity. No one, he said, comes to the Father but by me. So it emphasizes here that that it's not true that the only way to God is Christianity, and that bigotry is not religious. It's got nothing to do with the divine. The way to the mystery of God is through logos, which is the light, the manifestation of consciousness. Resurrection is really not about, coming out of the grave. It's about a realization of gnosis. It's about coming to an understanding of oneness. The Greek word for resurrection is awakening, and it means awakening in a spiritual sense. The resurrection of Christ is the awakening to Christ within. It's the understanding of who we really are. Literalists say a person, Jesus, died and resurrected, and if we believe this, we go to heaven. If we don't believe it, we go to hell. This is not what the original teaching was. This is what a misunderstanding of an allegory that was symbolic. They taught that we need to each resurrect to awaken to understanding, that we are dead and in hell in the material world because we're really spiritual beings and we're stuck in this incarnation. This is hell. I joke often, we are in hell already. That's actually Gnostic. I didn't know that. That's a Gnostic belief. And their understanding of hell is not a place with a guy with a pitchfork and fire. It's being attached to this illusion of the material world, that we're something far greater and something infinite, but being tied by the ego to identifying with the material world. That is hell. Plato said we are now dead and the body is our tomb. There was a pagan Gnostic called Olympiodorus, it's a great name, Olympiodorus, who said, when separated from the body, the psyche lives in reality, for here in the body is ourselves. Life in the body is a falling asleep. Life is a dream of hell. To incarnate is to descend into Hades, and there you sleep. You fall asleep. This is what they taught their initiates. Paul said we are only on the pneumatic level if God's consciousness dwells in us. Those who don't possess the Christ consciousness are not Christians. Plotinus explains that to incarnate is to descend into Hades and there fall asleep. The Christian secret book of John urges, be wakeful so that you come out of heavy sleep and take off the clothes of Hades. The Christian text, the concept of our great power, says you are asleep and dreaming, wake up. We think we're alive, but really we're dead. We think we're awake, and really we're asleep and dreaming. We think we know who we are and what life is, but really we're lost in an illusion. We need to resurrect. We need to wake up. We need gnosis. Quoting a pre-existing hymn, so Paul is digging back into the past for this. So this knowledge existed a long time earlier. Awake, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will illuminate you. Keeping in mind that Christ wasn't a person. Christ means, in their language, the anointed one. Okay, I read that. So heaven is an ever-present reality at the center. Hell is the circumference. Both here and now, we're both here and now depending on if we are spiritually dead or resurrected. And heaven and hell are both here and now depending on whether we are spiritually dead or resurrected. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus teaches the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth and people don't see it. But Paul explains when anyone is united to Christ, there is a new world. The old order has gone. The new order has already begun. And that's the end of the chapter. And look at that. It's almost exactly an hour. How perfect the timing was. This is the end of video number 4. And next time we will begin video number 5 with, is that right? No. I have to go back and check. Hang on a second. Yeah, that's the end of 4. Next time we'll begin. I'm so confused. Video number 5 with chapter 5. So that works out nicely. See, synchronistic. And chapter 5 is called The Goddess. And now we're going to get into some new good information that a lot of us may not know a lot about. I don't feel like I did. So it was really interesting to read that. That's it for now. Plenty to digest. I apologize if it's feeling confusing. It is confusing. These are big concepts. I have a bit of a headache. You probably all should. It's very challenging. It may not be new to everybody, but even if parts of it are not new, I think some of it will be. And we're going to get more into the symbolism and the stories, which is really fun. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know if you're interested in this sort of information. Okay. So thanks very much. Slán go fóill, slánte.